Good morning, everyone. We are here live from my house. I wish you were here. I wish we were connected and together, but unfortunately we aren't. So let's make the best of this time. Let's make the best of this time that we're together. And we're going to start with a worship today. So let's give it up to Nicole. Woo!
Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. Jesus, the name above every other name. Jesus, the only one who could ever sing. Worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you. We live for you. Holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder. Show me who you are and fill me with your heart and lead me in your love to those around me. Worthy of every song we could ever sing. Worthy of all the praise we could ever bring. Worthy of every breath it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Yeah. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so good to me. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You have been so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves at 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. Yeah. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself.
I think I got the audio working. There we go. It was awesome worship by Nicole. Sorry, there's some issues going on here, technical issues where the video wasn't kind of frozen, but you can, I hope you could listen to it and you could actually, hear the message that was being shared there, right? There's no mountain, there's no shadow, there's nothing that's going to stop us from reaching the love of God. There's nothing that's going to stop God's love to be reaching out to us, And so I declare right now over this day, a day that is going to be amazing over your life. Maybe you just woke up or you're about to wake up. I'm a little dark here, so it's a little harder. All right, there you go. I'm going to go this way. And so, but I hope that, God is going to be there for you and continue and finish up what he started today. We're going to finish up the series that we started about 4 or 5 weeks ago. In the series is titled "What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do." Remember, first week the bottom line was pay attention to how you affect your family, especially now during the time that we're living I think is the best time to really talk about this, right? Because we all affect each other, and a lot of times we don't really feel like that. Or a lot of times we don't really, you know, think the other side of it, right? The other option also is when there's nothing you can do. That was week two. God is with you. You know that sometimes there's nothing really you can do. There's nothing that you can say. There's nothing that can you can do to actually make it better. The situation, or maybe it's a friend that you know they're struggling with something, and there's nothing really you can do. But you know what? God is there with you. Week number three is when you don't know what to do the next right thing. Sometimes we're tempted to actually compromise. We're tempted not to do the right thing. We're tempted to cut some corners, and God is saying, you know what, even though when you're tempted, especially when you're tempted to do to right to cut those corners, that for you to keep going, for you to do the right thing, it's really about integrity, and for us to be what we're said we're going to be. Week number four, which was last week, when you don't know what to do, remember that your problems can position you for a purpose. And essentially, it's remembering that when you're going through some difficult times, when you're going through some difficult circumstances, that maybe there's a purpose in all that, right? That maybe through all of that, you're going to be in a position where you can help other people out, where you can help other people to go through the same thing. And so one of the things I want to talk about today is payback, right? And I don't know if you've ever been in this position, but I remember very clearly this position where I was pretty broke. It was, a couple years back. I didn't know exactly how long it was ago, but I was pretty broke, and during that time, I didn't have a lot of money. In this particular time, I didn't have money to pay gas, to put gas on my car. And I don't know if you know, but you need gas for your car to go, right? If you don't have gas, your car will stop. I don't know if that ever happened to you either. That's actually not a good thing to happen, right? For your car to just stop, moving. It's actually pretty bad for you to have to go and deal with that, having to go buy gasoline, put in your car tank so you can actually reconnect. But I was like broke. I didn't have money for the gas, and all of a sudden I'm praying, and I see this. I don't know if you ever see those red gallon looking things that for gasoline, and it's outside my house, and I look around and I'm like, wow, that's awesome. Let me see if there's any gasoline there. I pick it up, and sure enough, the thing is full. And I'm like, wow, thank you, Jesus. I really appreciate, you'll help me out here. I thank you very much. And I didn't even think about it. I just like poured it out into my tank. I was like, you know what? That's all that I needed. Well, the problem was that gallon of gasoline was there for such a long time that what was actually inside of it wasn't fuel. It wasn't gasoline. It wasn't just fuel. It was actually water. And I don't know if you knew this or not, but cars will now run in water. There are some cars now, I know that you know this probably, but there's some cars that actually will run on water. But 99.999% of the cars will now run on water. And if you put water inside your car tank, it will stop immediately, and you can actually damage it pretty well. So what ended up being something that was supposed to be helping me, and something that was supposed to be there and very easy to get fixed, actually became a very big headache. So now I'm stuck, right? Like 5 minutes from my house. It barely left my house, and my car was just stopped out of the sudden. And I'm thinking, oh my God, what happened, right? It was probably the gallon that I put. Was it something? At this point, I didn't know what was going on. Well, I was already broke. I don't know if you remember that, but so now I'm broke with a car that's like on the side of the road without starting, and I have no idea how to get to work or how to go to school. So I called my friend. At that time, he was living with me, and I kind of told him, "Hey, this is what's happening. What do you think? Can you help me out?" And, without hesitation, he came by and he actually helped me, and he was very like, he really liked to help me, and it was such a good position to be in, right? Because he was in that position to just be able to help. That was the kind of friend that he was. And so he ended up actually paying $300 to get that fixed. So that one small thing that was supposed to be what, like $5, $10, it was a $5, $10 issue, turned out to be a $300 issue. Okay. But you know what? The good thing is he never asked for it back. It was one of those type of helps that he just helped without, asking anything in return. That's the type of payback that's really good, right? Not asking to be paid back is really like a heartwarming type of payback. But the idea of payback that I want to talk about today is not really that type of payback. It's really the type of payback when somebody hurts you. When somebody talks about us behind our backs, When somebody flirts with, a boyfriend or girlfriend, we want payback. When someone fails to text us or invite us to a group outing, we want payback. We want them to feel the pain and hurt we felt. We want them to be embarrassed the way that we were embarrassed. And our first reaction is almost always to get even. I want, like, oh, I'm so pissed. I'm so mad at so and so because they did this and this. And I'm so, like, infuriated. I'm so frustrated because of this situation. I'm so hurt because of this. And to get something in return. I just wish that this and this happened to that person, right? Perhaps maybe you even left a snap, like a shady snap comment or a shady, some sort of social media comment, and everybody knows that was meant for this one person, or maybe nobody knows except you, right? But you left it there, so sort of like your revenge. And it isn't true that the closer the person are to us, the more we want to pay back, the more they, and really it's because the closest they are to you, the closest they are to be able to hurt you, really, right? We said this over and over again, but like, suppose somebody out and you're walking down the street and they say, "Hey, you ugly," you'd be like, "Oh, whatever, man. I don't really care. I don't know you." But suppose like your best friend comes to you and really, really not like joking, but says, "Hey, man, you're ugly." Wouldn't that hurt a lot more than somebody that you didn't barely know? And I'm just, saying something in general here, but could be whatever it is that, probably would make you hurt more. But for most of us, paybacks comes in one of three ways. First way is a public payback. That's the most obvious one, is really like, I get you for what you did. I'm doing exactly what you did to me, right? So this is when you do to them what they did to us in an obvious way. We talk about, like, for example, we talk bad about the person who talked bad about us, or we roast them and just kid, or the second possible way is a passive payback. This is a little bit more subtle. We make comments that aren't obviously hurtful, but can be interpreted that way. So like maybe you roll your eyes, right, when someone talks, or you ignore texts, or you post snaps that are kind of like meant to be for that person. That's like a passive payback. You still want to get a payback, but you're not like totally full on. Or the third type, which is imaginary payback, when you have an argument in your mind and you totally destroy that person in your mind. You think it over and over again, that kind of consumes your mind, but you don't actually do anything. It's just kind of like there in your mind. Then there's the most satisfying payback of all time, which I didn't even mention, which is enjoying watching them fall. Like, for example, when your ex broke up with you, for someone else, and now he or she got dumped. That's the best payback, right? You can actually relate, you can actually feel that way. Or maybe your mom snapped at you and hurt your feelings, and now she's crying and apologizing. So that's the perfect setup for you to get back to her. Or that guy that made fun of you in third grade, face plants during a pep rally game, right? So that's totally payback. That's like, yes, he saw that coming. Like, he should have seen that coming like years ago, right? In those moments, it feels like justice, doesn't it? It feels good to see someone get what's coming to do, whether it's good or bad. And so we talked a lot about Joseph. All the things that happened to him. He was the favorite son, the rub it in. He dreamt of being in charge of the whole family. His brothers plotted to kill him. So he got to the point where he was such a big deal, such an annoying kid, that they wanted to just kill him. But instead sold him to slavery. He becomes a slave in Egypt. He was a slave in prison in Egypt. He actually was sent to Egypt because he held on to his integrity and he didn't compromise. And so Joseph was this man who, basically interpreted dreams. All right, he was a dreamer. If you were to qualify him as something, he probably would be a dreamer. And eventually, that gets him to the position where he is at the top. This is the most successful position that anyone could have, and he gets it. So he gets to interpret the dreams of Pharaoh, who's the ruler, the president of the time, the dictator of Egypt at that time. And eventually, he becomes second in command there. And God, in all his wisdom, uses this whole situation to prepare for what's to come. And he knows that what's going to come is going to be hard. It's going to be a global food shortage. Everybody's going to be hurt. Everybody's going to be, like, people are literally going to be dying of starvation. And that's actually a real issue even today. I don't know if you knew that or not, but people die of starvation. People die because they don't have enough stuff to eat. So, next time you think about complaining about what you have to eat, stop and think about it. Okay, stop and think about like the fact that people are dying literally because they don't have the food, literally because they are without food right now. So, and the other thing you can do too is you could actually help that. You can actually help. You can help that. You can help the fact that people are struggling with that. You can actually help them to be able to give them some food. So the other, but so that's what's going on, right? And so there's a plot twist happening right now. So Joseph's whole family was suffering from the lack of food. Okay, and that's where the time of payback is about to do. So Joseph comes back and he says, so Jacob, his dad, sent his brothers to Egypt to buy food. At this point, they all thought he was dead. Okay, his dad thinks he's dead. His family thinks that he's dead. Basically, they sold him to slavery. They said, you know what? There's the Egyptians like shaved their heads. Egyptians had like makeup in their eyes, and so he didn't look like the Israelite that he was. He looked like an Egyptian because he was working for the Egyptian government. So he needed to look like an Egyptian. And so there's lots of drama back and forth. I really recommend you reading it. It's in Genesis 42 through 50. So there's about 8 chapters just talking about all the drama, right? I'm gonna get to like kind of like the end of it, the end of the drama, but there's a lot that goes on, and essentially it's like the back and forth. Joseph immediately recognized the brothers, and he wants them to kind of like he's in a struggle. He doesn't want to pay back, but at the same time he doesn't like want to like totally like go. So he creates like this whole circumstance so that it can happen. Like this, kind of like a soap opera drama movie. And so you definitely don't want to miss the details in that. But I'm going to start on chapter 45 of Genesis, verse 1 through 3. It says this: Then Joseph could no longer control himself before all his attendants, and he cried out, "Have everyone leave my presence." So there was no one with Joseph when he made himself known to his brothers. And he wept so loudly that the Egyptians heard him, and Pharaoh's household heard about him. Joseph said to his brothers, "I am Joseph. Is my father still living?" But his brothers were not able to answer him because they were terrified at his presence. And so look at this. Look, imagine the situation, okay? Joseph comes out, he says, "Leave, everybody get out of here. There's so much noise here, there's so much going on here. I just want to be with this group of people." And then eventually he reveals himself and says, "I am Joseph, the guy that you tried to kill. I'm him." Imagine the tension that just happened there, right? The brothers are probably just eyed open, like mouth open, trying to figure out what to even like process this. What's going on? Really? You're alive? I thought we killed you. I thought we like sold you to a slavery and you'd be dead by now. And so Joseph was face to face with the people who tried to kill him. And if there's a different type of movie, this would be the moment where it's payback time. It's when his brothers who were, insisted in selling him to slavery actually were there right there. So the interesting part is that now that they're reunited, guess who's in charge? Guess who's the one that actually has all the control? So it's really payback time. It's in the palm of his hands. It says, "You know what? I can make whatever you want. You're right here. I control you. The man, of I control your destiny." Really, literally, that's what's happening. And so the question to me is, what would you have done if you're in his place? What have you done differently? Would you refuse food to them? That's one way to pay back. Would you throw them in prison? That's one way you could totally pay back, right? Would you sell them as slaves? That's the public announcement thing that I give an example, right? Where you pay back what they pay you back. Or would you even be worse and would you just kill him? Kill them? Wow, you like, I have no resolution. I'm just gonna kill you, right? He had that power. He had the power to do all these things. Okay, so you have to understand that he actually was the man in power. It wasn't like he wishful thinking. He actually was that man. So what would you have done with all the power to hurt the person or the people who had hurt you the most? If you had all the power in the world to get back with the person that hurt you the most, what would you do? As the story continues, Joseph asked his brothers to walk over and stand close to him. You can imagine how terrified his brothers were feeling at this moment. This is like the moment. This is like that moment in the movie you're like, I don't know what's going to happen. And so he's just like, come on, brothers, come over here. But, the brothers are like, what are we gonna get? What's gonna happen? I'm afraid. I'm gonna die. My family. I'm gonna lose my job. My family's gonna die. I don't know what's gonna happen, right? If you read the chapters before, like I was telling you to do, you're gonna get that. You're gonna get exactly why I'm saying this. So I'll leave it to you to read them. But on Genesis 45, continue on verse 4, the second part of verse 4 until verse 7, it says this: I am your brother Joseph, the one you sold into Egypt. And now do not be distressed and do not be angry with yourselves for selling me here, because it was to save lives that God sent me ahead of you. For 2 years now, there has been a famine in the land, and for the next 5 years, there will be no plowing and reaping. But God sent me ahead of you to preserve for you a remnant on earth and to save your lives by a great deliverance. Say what? What just happened? So the guy that's going to like get his revenge, the guy that's like plotting his revenge, that evil guy that's been waiting for his moment to get his revenge. Instead, he's offering redemption. Instead, he's offering salvation. Instead, he's offering a solution to a global crisis that is happening, that is affecting everyone. He's like, you know what? There's like basically what we're living in right now, right? So imagine like different situation, but about the same thing. Well, there's a pandemic that's going on. It's going to last for months, and I have the cure. I have the vaccine, and so I'm the only one that can like provide for the people around. Guess what? I have the vaccine for my whole family. So if you want, I got it for you. You know what? And so even though you did all these things that were bad for me, God prepared me to be able to be here. God is the one that sent me to this place. And so God, look at the response that he said. You know, I don't know if you read it, but nowhere in here talks about revenge. Nowhere in here he's like saying, wow, you did this, and I'm totally like I I've been so much hurtful. You don't know what it was for me to suffer, for me to be sold as in slavery, for me to go to a different country, for me to lose all my family, for me to, he never said that. He never like went on and on and on. He actually had all the right to be able to do that. That was the real time for he could that where he could actually said that, right? So he had already let go of the idea of revenge. And there's one big word here for us, and that one big important word for all of us that we need to like listen to and let it sink in. And that word is forgiveness. So one of the things that he learned to do is he learned to let go. He learned to forgive. He learned that no circumstance, no situation that he was going to deal with was going to be greater than his willingness to forgive. And so it's obviously harder done than said. I don't know what hurt you went through. I don't know what hurt you're going through right now. But you know what? There's nothing that's going to stop you from. There's nothing that can stop you from letting go. You control that. You don't control what happened to you. You don't control who hurt you. You don't control like what happened to you, right? To be in the position where you are, but you do control how you react to it. You do control if you're going to let that be a prison in your life. If you're going to continue to let that one thing that happened years ago or maybe just yesterday to control not just your moment of your life now, but forever, right? I read yesterday on Star Wars thing where it said, you don't have to be the person that you used to be, right? You choose how you want to live your life now. You don't let the past define who you are right now. And so, he look in the eyes of the ones who caused him the most grief. He look into the eyes of the people that hurt him the most, and yet care for how they were feeling. That he cared for the way that they were feeling. He asked, what? How is my father? How are you guys doing? Because there's this pandemic that's going on. I'm really freaking out for you, and so I really care about how you're doing. I feel for your health. So I'm going to stay away from my friends. I'm going to deny that fact because I want to protect you, Grandpa. I want to protect you, Grandma, because I know that if I don't do that, maybe I can pass this thing to you. So look how thoughtful he is. Look how he's like so thoughtful, so loving, so forgiving, right? There's no way he would have done that if he had a grudge. There's no way he would do that if he had not forgiven. And so he basically acknowledged their wrong. If you go back and read what I just read, it says that what you did was wrong, and actually he acknowledged that it was hurtful. What you did hurt me, but he didn't like go on and on and on about it. He didn't create more hurt because of all that. And only a healed person can do that. I've heard so many testimonies of like how forgiveness is so powerful. There's a story of Joyce Meyer. I don't know if you ever heard of her story, but basically she was abused sexually for years by her stepfather. The guy that's supposed to be there to provide her a guidance in this world, the guy that's supposed to be there to provide for her, physically, like, money wise, right? Financially, and the God is supposed to be like the example of who the Father, our God, is, was the one that was abusive to her for years. And for years, she was beautiful. For years, she suffered. For years, she was hurt because of that. And maybe you're not in that level of hurtfulness, but maybe there's something that someone did to you that hurt you. And so maybe, then really, I think that's what God is trying to tell us today. Is there something in our hearts that hurt us so bad, or there's something in our hearts that are still there that we haven't let go? And eventually what happened is, God talked to her, and she like got to this place where in a position, it took her years to do this, right? But eventually God said, you have to forgive your stepfather. And she was not willing to do it, she didn't want to do it, but eventually she decided to do it. And what the incredible part is that it got to a point where she forgave her stepfather, sorry, and was able to minister actually on his life salvation. And so her stepfather was saved because of that moment, because of that decision that she took to forgive. And she actually, in the end of his life, he was, pretty debilitated, and she actually had the choice and to take care of him, and that's what she did. So look at this: the person that was hurt the most by because of this one person, right? She was hurt she was really hurtful because of what he had done in early in her childhood. Now she gets to the point of not only forgiving him, but actually leading him to salvation. That's eternal, right? That's not just temporary; it's eternal, and taking care of his life. What a loving woman that she is! But she only can do that through the power of Jesus, through the forgiveness that Jesus offers each one of us. And so the same thing happens here with Joseph, right? He's a person that's completely healed. He chose to forgive over payback. Somewhere between being sold into slavery and being reunited with his brothers, a lot has happened there. If you go back and just read what we just talked about, Joseph did the hard work of giving his heart to God and allowing God to be the center of his healing. Instead of him saying, you know what, I'm going to focus on what hurt me the most. I'm going to focus on what's the worst that's happened to me. I'm going to focus on what God is doing on my life. I'm going to choose look at Jesus. I'm going to choose to, forgiveness over what's hurtful. And it didn't make his brothers okay. It didn't make what his brothers did okay. That's what you got to realize. Forgiveness doesn't make what happens okay. It's not forgetfulness. You're going to remember it, but so it didn't excuse what his brothers did, right? It didn't make Joseph's pain any less. Maybe it was still hurtful. Maybe he still had to deal with that, right? While he's talking to his family, while something happened, he would think about, oh yes, I was rejected. I had to deal with this, and that's maybe the way I'm behaving this way. So it is painful still, but it did take the real pain, the real hurt, and no longer put them in the center stage. It put God there, and that made forgiveness possible, not only for his brothers, but freedom from his own pain too. So here's the thing, without forgiveness, it's like you're in this cage that both you and the other person are, in jail for, right? And so when you choose to let go, one of the things that happens is like you break off that chain. Maybe the other person's still in chains because maybe they didn't let go. But when you let go, when you say, you know what, I'm going to forgive you, you are opening that jail up from you. You're getting out of prison, right? You're like redeeming yourself from there. You're like getting out of jail, basically. So what happens here is, he tells his brothers and his whole family to move to Egypt because you just heard there was 5 years more of these things to happen. And you know what? So now he's the one that leads them into salvation. He's the one that, helps them get through all of this. And in Genesis 45:15, that's the end where it says, and he kissed all his brothers and wept over them. Afterward, his brothers talked with him. So after he's done all of this, right? After he's talked about it, after he said, you know what? I forgive you, and I know what happened. I know it was wrong and it was hurtful, but I've chosen a long time to forgive. Now his brothers are like, oh, you're Joseph. I'm so sorry, for what happened. Now they're willing to talk. Now they can even react to what's going on. And this is where we see God do the impossible in a relationship. Bring peace when there has only been hurt through forgiveness. And so today's bottom line is, when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. When you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. It's really about reconciliation. I don't know if you ever heard this word reconciliation, but it's really the meaning of being being right with the person again. So it's kind of like when you do something and you're mad and like you hurt someone and you feel bad, right? Because that relationship now is hurtful, and you're away from that person, and you kind of like want to say, you say I'm sorry, the other person say they're sorry, and you're united back. That's what reconciliation means. And so when you pursue peace, you fight for that in a relationship. That's interesting. How do you fight for peace? It almost feels like that's contradictory, but that's what the Bible is teaching us. First, sometimes you have to fight for it, right? Now, here's the thing. There's really two choices in our life. You have to choose. Either you're right, you fight to be right, you fight to win, you fight to make a point, especially now that you're teenagers, right? You want to be right. You want to have a voice that people hear and hear your opinion. So that's one option, right? Or you fight to the urge to pay back and pursue peace and joy. So you can have two things in life. You can be right or you can have joy. You can be right or you can have peace. That's it. You can't have both. Okay? I'm telling you this because I'm married. I know how that works. And I believe that's the same thing is going to happen to you. If you look at your parents' relationships, right? If you look at any relationship, you're going to see that what I'm saying is the truth. Sometimes, it's try to fight so hard. I love to be right. Don't get me wrong. I love to be right. But you know what? In the pursuit of being right, in the pursuit of proving that my point is correct, in the pursuit of proving that what I said is the right answer, let's say, I might lose that joy. I might lose that peace. It's going to be so many complications. It's going to be so much trouble, so much drama that's not going to be good. So you got to choose. Are you going to be right, or are you going to have joy and peace? And the earlier you learn this lesson, the better it's going to be for you, because it's a lesson for life. So Joseph preserved his relationship with all his brothers because he chose peace, because he fought for forgiveness. And he was only able to forgive with the help of God. And I'm sure he struggled with letting go. He didn't have the superpower to forgive. He understood that God was at work in this situation. And so the same thing for us too. We have to learn to let it go. We have to learn to live this out. When you pursue peace, when you say, what, I don't care who's right. I want to be good with you. I want to have peace with you. I want to be okay, that our relationship is okay. You lay down your right to get back. You lay down your right to be correct. You lay down the right to be hurt. You let go. You let go of revenge. You say goodbye to desire to get even. You choose to forgive. You may have to actually work at this daily, right? Just saying out loud is easy, but what about living it out, right? Maybe you've forgiving that person, but maybe you don't really act like it. And so this is a daily walk. But ultimately, it will benefit you. It will take you out of that prison. And not only you have peace with them, but you actually have peace with yourself. That's the inner peace, right? And so today's bottom line, like I talked about, is when you don't know what to do, pursue peace instead of payback. And that is the end of this story. There's so much that we can learn from Joseph. If you have missed our stories behind, you can actually go back on YouTube and watch it, or you can watch and listen to it in Genesis. You'll see Joseph's story. There's so much that we can learn from him. But honestly, when you don't know what to do, God's there for you, for us to live it out. And so I pray for you right now that God is going to give you peace instead of payback. For you to let go of whatever is hurting you, for you to let go of what's whatever it's in your heart that you haven't let go yet, whatever it's in your heart that's holding you back. And I pray right now in the name of Jesus, Lord, I pray that the Holy Spirit of the Lord will show you, things that are hurting you, things that people have said about you that maybe you put more thought in, more effort into it than it actually was worth, And so I rebuke that thought right now in your life, and I declare in the name of Jesus a complete restoration in the name of Jesus. We love you so much. We miss you so much. And we're going to see you next week. And for the small groups, we're going to follow up. See you in Zoom.